Welcome back everyone to another video of Era of Chaos, and today we're gonna talk about the Pantheon again, but slightly different way because the tournament has not started yet. We're kind of like in the preparation phase, and I'm going to build the teams because in one of the comments on an earlier video there was a request for a video on how I built the teams, and that's definitely what we're gonna do then today. For those of you who might not know, you have to have 3 teams with 6 units in them each for the Battle of Gods tournament, and since I have 3 of the faction leaders, Sandro, Kilgore and Astral, I will be making teams for each one of those. That makes the team building a little bit easier for the video purposes. That's not always the best choice to make. Sometimes you want to spread your factions a little bit more to be more well-rounded. This way I make myself a little bit more vulnerable if, for example, my tower team with Astral is weak against a specific other hero or faction. Then if my Astral and tower team goes up against one of those teams, I have a higher chance of losing. So some people spread their teams more out, like they have more factions in one team, but I will do mostly faction teams right now, because that's when the heroes capitalize the most on the formation you have, and that's what we're opting for here. We also still can swap the groups in the preparation phases, so that's always an option as well. And yeah, let's start with the Astral team. We have talked about Astral in a previous video, so I will just go very quickly over him. Basically, what you do is you can blind and silence with this skill. You blind everyone, like this is in a small area or in a large area, but this is on the whole battlefield, all hostile units, and also decrease the accuracy, then the normal air arrow that everybody knows, like the first spell, and lightning bolt, the same AoE damage spell that also Solmir has, so nothing new there. Specialties are that total darkness also silences, that is already in the skill description implemented, so we knew that already. Yeah, and any spell that is not Titan's Thunder triggers the Magic Awakening, so you want to have as many tower units with Magic Awakening as possible to trigger the Magic Awakenings a lot and get those bonuses. And then from 3-star, the Magic Awakening increase also the resistance, and yeah, that is pretty good for the tower units. I do not have my Astrals on 4-star yet, but well, if we would have it, the cooldown of my spells would reduce by 10%, and we have lower mana cost on the ultimate Brilliant Earth, which is always good, and the ultimate Brilliant Earth will also deal damage to the hostile units, which we are now missing. So like right now, Astral is only healing and not really doing damage. Yeah, but that's fine for now. We will get him to 4-star eventually, but we're not there yet. So what do we want to do? We want to look at our tower units. Our Golem has a Magic Awakening skill, so we want definitely the Golem as one of the tanks. Genie has a magic awakening, so we definitely want a Genie in the team. Giant was already in there because I couldn't deploy all units, but also has a magic awakening, so we want him. And we definitely also want Naga, because Naga and Giant are the most the damage dealers of this team, basically. So now we already have 4 out of 6 units deployed that we want to have. What I want to do with this Astral team is we're gonna make it pretty tanky. So we're gonna put 2 more tanks in there, but they are not gonna be from the tower faction, obviously. We also do not want to use the skeletons here because they are necro, and we will be building a necro team later. And they're also not gonna be stronghold because we are also building a Kilgore team later. So what are they gonna be? One of them is going to be the Earth Elemental. Earth Elemental because of the elemental force, and especially the last part of the skill Elemental Force. When Earth Elemental unit is on the battlefield, reduces enemy heroes additional mana by 17, which is really good. And the first part of the spell, especially against Sandro teams, so like against other necro teams. Sandro only has earth spells, and when Earth Elemental is on the battlefield, it increases the magic resistance of earth spells for all friendly units by 25%. This is at skill level 11. I don't know how much further that goes when it's getting up to 15, but this is for me right now. And it reduces the magic resistance of earth spells for all enemy units by 17%. So he would be good in both in a Sandro team and also against a Sandro team. If both have an earth elemental, the buffs and debuffs kind of get reversed, or like they are matching, and nothing really happens. But if you don't have one against the Sandro, then it's kind of bad, because like if the Sandro has one and you don't, then you're a little bit screwed, I would say. But yeah, that's why we have this in our Astral team, because I think the only thing that can beat my Astral at the moment is a Sandro, and we needed another tank here. And the last tank, that's gonna be a little bit tricky, because my strongest tanks now are Stronghold and Necro. And yeah, I am going to use Necro units, I'm going to use Stronghold units, and I will definitely be using the Angel, so I have Castle units. If I do not want to expand my roster too much, an obvious choice would be to put Swordsman in there, but I don't really want to use X9 units, so I decided I would extend my roster one more faction and put some put a 1X unit in there. Excuse me, a 1X unit in there in the Dendroid Guard, and yeah, that is basically the team. The Genie does not really matter where she is, because she's mainly healing our units and not really attacking other units. I'm not sure where to put the Naga. I think either top or bot lane. I do not really want Naga in the mid lane, because in the middle lane the dragon spawns. So after 20 seconds my Naga would be stuck on the enemy dragon artifact and does not really deal damage to the units on the field that we need to go over to get to the backline. So it's gonna be either bot or top lane. Probably bot lane. Well, that doesn't really matter. Let's just for now, let's go with bot lane, and let's have this team as set for now. We might change it later, but for now this is a good team in my opinion. and we will also be making a roster later on. So that's probably gonna be a long video again. But yeah, I would just cover everything from the teams, how I set them up, and the roster is a part of it. So next one is Kilgore. So we are going to use as many stronghold unit as possible. Let's go over the Kilgore skills first. Yeah, let's go. Okay, Fire Arrow, you know Fire Arrow already. Fire Arrow is just the basic fire spell, deals damage and burns them. Then we have Bloodlust, which is also a skill that Rashka has. So most people will know what Bloodlust do, increase attack and life drain. This is very important, life drain, for especially one unit later on. And Quicksand is a very, very good earth spell that reduces the enemy's damage reduction, which is really, really good to shred through some tanks and get to the backline faster. And then, of course, the ultimate increases all friendly units' tenacity by 50 and their crit damage by 10%. Friendly stronghold units restore 63,000 HP every 30 seconds. And then the specialties are mainly about Behemoth, but also giving stronghold units some boosts. Let's just also look over them real quick. Behemoth upgrades to a monster Behemoth and becomes immune to almost all controls and debuffs. That includes bleed, burn, disease, petrification, however that word is spelled, pronounced, you know what that word is. Freeze, slow, stun, low morale, silence, blind, plague, and time stop. So that's basically everything that other people use. All stronghold units gain attribute bonus as their HP drops. War Behemoth gains extra attribute bonus, and its Infuriate inflicts extra damage. So that is a buff for all stronghold units here on 2-star. And then the 3-star buff. When the HP of War Behemoth or Ancient Behemoth drops to 0 for the first time, he becomes invincible for 5 seconds. And healing efficiency when invisible reduces by 80%. That is really, really strong, the 3-star thing here. So like basically if they start going for my Behemoth with everything they can, it doesn't matter how quick they get them down, he will be invincible for 5 seconds anyways. And if you get to kill any other units of the opponent, then you are getting healed from the Behemoth skills, and you can quickly get to full health again with the Behemoth and with all the other spells here from Kilgore as well. The ultimate and with Bloodlust mainly. And then 4-star specialty, I do not have that yet, but we will still look at that real quick. Increases the duration of Unyielding Faith, that's the ultimate, by 3 seconds, doubles its effect and reduces its mana cost by 40%. So that would be pretty cool to reduce the mana cost as well as it was for Astral, but unfortunately we don't have that. And Stronghold faction units gain 300 increased crit hit and 10% unit damage when Unyielding Faith is active. Stronghold units cannot die within the first 5 seconds after Unyielding Faith was used. So that is also really, really strong here. That basically gives you the option to still use X9 units here, even if you're up against Sandro. We will be using one 9X unit as well, namely the Orc, because in my experience the Orc can tank 1 or 2, like the initial damage from a Sandro or from the Sandros that I'm facing at the moment, and then heal back up. So yeah, we will be using the orc, definitely. We will be using a second tank here, for sure. I do want to use rock, definitely. Not sure yet where I put them. And I also do want to use my Cyclops. I'll probably have Cyclops alone in the mid lane to have a little like bait, because Cyclops is very, very tanky and he can tank chargers very, very good and also stuns them. So if my opponent decides to go through the mid lane, they first get stuck on the skeletons. Depending on how long they're getting stuck there, my dragon will be spawning. And if they get through, it's still gonna be my Cyclops standing there as a tank, stunning their chargers. And then as my last unit, I already said I will be using Angel, and I will be using Angel in the Kilgore team because I just think that Behemoth and Angel is such a strong combination that I do not want to overlook. And yeah, that looks pretty good for now. I will only use 2 tanks here because of this little trap with the Cyclops that I set here in the mid lane. Therefore I will also not put the rock in the mid lane. Might put him here later, but that's for now is it good as it is. And we can move on to the next team, which is gonna be Sandro team. So for this we're only using Necro units, so the Bone Dragon will definitely be in there. We have our skeletons, we have our vampire, then we definitely have this dude and the Lich. My Lich is not awakened yet because when the awakening came out I was still awakening in something else, but now I'm starting the Lich, but it's not done yet, unfortunately. And now I'm kinda thinking, do I want to run a second charger or do I want a third tank? Now when I have something like this, when I not really can decide what I want to do, I usually go into the training grounds. I will save it with the third tank for now, and we go over the Sandro skills first, and then we go into the training grounds and we test those teams. That's what I usually do when I have my teams built. I go to the training grounds and then I test them against each other. It's kind of fair to test them like that for me, because I will be using same level artifacts because they are all using my artifacts, and yeah, I think that is a pretty decent way to test those teams. Let's start with the first spell here again. Earth Arrow is just the normal earth spell, which is the best of the basic spells because it stuns. No other basic spell has such a strong secondary effect. Then we do have Implosion, which is the skill why all the 9x units basically die immediately from Sandro. Deals earth spell damage to enemy units within a certain range equal to a certain amount and 2% of their max HP, and has a 50% chance to stun them, and if they are in low morale, the damage and chance to stun will be doubled. Keep that in mind with the low morale because that will come into play later. Animated Death, I think Virumina has that as well, so you might know that spell already. Deals a certain amount of damage to non-necropolis units within a certain range, and restores the HP of friendly necropolis units by a certain amount. That is pretty good. I don't know really how the AI uses that spell, if it mainly uses this spell to heal or to deal damage, but I guess we'll see. This will be the first time I really use Sandro, because before he wasn't even 3-star, so I couldn't really use him. And then Darkest Hour, this is when low moral comes into play again. Deals earth spell damage to all hostile non-necropolis units equal to a certain amount and 5% of their max HP, and inflicts low moral on them for 27 seconds. And the cooldown is 27 seconds as well. So after this is cast one time, enemy units will be in low morale for basically the whole time. Mean Morale restores the HP of friendly necropolis units and inflicts low moral on them, which is good on necropolis units. So what you want is you want the Darkest Hour to go up first before the implosion. That way the implosion will deal double damage and will stun by 100% chance, because the stun chance is also doubled and was 50% before. And then the specialties, they are kind of long, but we will still go over them. For 1 star, low moral can reduce magic resistance by 50% and unit damage by 10% for enemy units. Attack speed reduction will increase from 33 to 50%. Implosion reduces mana cost by 10, so that's a very good thing. Deals damage to targets equal to 0% of their max HP and doubles damage to units in low morale. So that is already implemented in the skill description because we are a 3-star Sandro. And 3-star, that is the longest thing here. The unit damage reduction of friendly necropolis units increases by an additional 10%. When fighting against units in low morale, the damage reduction will be doubled. So basically, after your ultimate goes off, every boost that you have with your necro units will be doubled for the rest of the match. That's why that, and also the implosion, is probably why Sandro is used so much, because you just get your boosts all the time and not just for a certain amount of time. And 4-star, we don't have that yet. We're also 3-star Sandro here, but we will go over it as well. For every friendly necropolis unit on the battlefield... Oh, where's my spell? Where's my specialties? Come back. Every friendly necropolis unit on the battlefield, mana recovery rate is increased by 0.8. When an enemy unit dies, every living necropolis unit can recover hero's mana by 7. So every time an enemy dies, you're getting mana with Sandro back and can cast your spells even faster, which makes it even stronger. And then last but not least, when Sandro casts Darkest Hour, every necropolis unit has a 30% chance to reduce the cooldown. So that's why you want to use mainly, like basically only necropolis units in a Sandro team, because then all the units can have a chance to reduce the skill cooldowns. Alright, one more thing before we go into testing. I put the vampire here not immediately behind the skeletons because he is a charger. That means he is faster than the tank skeletons, and there is the chance that the opponents will target the vampire then. So I put the vampire here. Could also put him here, but I think here is good enough. And then I will assure that they target my skeletons and not my vampire. Alright, so now the teams are built basically. What I do now is I go to my rosters. I have a roster for Battle of Gods. This is not usually empty, but I emptied it before this video just so we can make a new roster. But before we filling this up, I usually test with an empty roster as well. So I see, yeah, if my teams are good without the roster bonus. And oh yeah, that is one of my old teams, my old Solomir team that worked 2 weeks ago. Don't know about now, but yeah. So this is not exactly the same as Battle of Gods, because in Battle of Gods you have only 3 lanes and the dragon spawns in the middle. But if you have 3 tanks in the front lane, the skeletons from your artifacts spawn on the bottom lane, not on the top lane. I will overlook the skeletons for my testing purposes, and we'll have the mid lane with the dragon artifact, because that is the more important artifact in my opinion. Okay, so I think the defending units, yeah, this is already the Sandro team that we were building, like this. This is already the Sandro team that we have built just yet, and we will be using the same team against it, but in this team we are going to use only 2 tanks, and then we're gonna use a second charger unit. I will tell you already, this might not be still not be what we are running in the end, because I already did that test specifically. So yeah, let's see. That's what I do. I have only artifacts active. I have no roster whatsoever, so my units are the exact same. Well, now they are anyways, because they are the same units. But yeah, so what happens now is usually I have here the skeletons, and the mummy will not go to the top lane, it will go to the bottom lane. And I do not manual this, because Battle of Gods is also not manual, it's also it is also auto battles. So yeah, you see here we have our Dread Knights focusing the Lich already. That basically means the team with the 2 chargers wins now. But when I test those teams against the other teams, we will see that the Necro team with the 3 tanks is a little bit more consistent. So let's just continue having the Necro team here in the backline. In the defense. And let's go with our Kilgore team next to test this against it. Again, here the tank would have to go to my skeletons first and not immediately go after one of the side lane tanks. So that's a little bit not like a little bit untrue in that sense, but I think it's good enough for running a little test. Okay, so that was our Kilgore team that we were running. You see already the power difference is not too high, because we have the roster bonuses not activated. The Kilgore team here is a little bit higher, because my 4 of the Kilgore team's units I use in my main roster, so they are kind of like the most advanced here. They have all the skills level 11, and so the power here is a little bit higher, but I mean, power difference does not really say anything if it's that little significant. So let's just run this test here as well. This is basically the first real test of the teams, because now we see Kilgore versus Sandro. I might say, I think, depending on whether my Sandro can one-shot the orcs or not, we will see that soon. Darkest Hour, and now Titans. Yeah, okay, so he can actually. So I'd say the Sandro will win here just because of that. Also, those guys would not be here now. Alright. But, I mean, that looks still good for the Kilgore team, to be honest. We're getting healed now. And there's the revive from the Angel, so Angel did not revive my orcs. But yeah, that looks like my Kilgore is winning against my Sandro team. We will just run the same, like the last parts, just killing the last units off, so that's good. Okay, so we see here, okay, my Kilgore team wins against my Sandro team. This is okay, but I want to try what happens if I do have my second charger here. There's also a little difference whether you test, like whether you reverse the teams. So my Kilgore on the defense would maybe have a different outcome than my Kilgore on offense. Alright, let's see. I think I will not look the full battle here. I will just see how long my... Okay, here now we do have the revive, so that might give us an even better advantage here. Okay, now the vampires also focused orcs, so there goes our advantage. But the Kilgore team still wins. This is, to me, not really surprising, because as I said, 4 of the 6 units from my Kilgore team are in my main formation that I will be using basically everywhere outside of Battle of Gods. Alright, so Kilgore wins that as well. It's gonna be interesting to see whether my Astral or my Kilgore wins. So we are finishing the test with Sandro in the defense. So next will be the Astral. Where are my tower units? You go here so I can reduce. I can go with that. We have this guy, we have this guy, we have that guy. We do have the Dendroid Guard, and we do have Earth Elemental. And of course here we are using Astral and not Kilgore. Here the power is actually pretty equal, which is interesting. But yeah, let's run the test and see how that goes. The Astra team should win here because we're not even running 9x units, and the Sandro will probably focus on the Genie, which will most likely not die. But yeah, we'll see. And we also have the Earth Elemental in here, so that reduces the power of Sandro. There goes the first tank from the Sandro team. Naga doing some good work here. And there goes the first charger. Now my Naga is on the Bone Dragon. But Naga gets kinda low here. Also, the Earth Elemental is down already. Yeah, but now Genie keeps on healing and the tanks are falling. That was the next tank. The only tank that's left is the Dragon Artifact, and then there's only a little Lich in the backline, which I think we should not worry that much about. It's interesting that like the health bar looks so little, even though 5 of my 6 units are still alive, and also the dragon artifact is still alive. Alright, so yeah, the Astra team definitely won that. We can still run. Hello, game, thank you. We can still run the test with the 3rd tank here, which we're definitely gonna do. Let's see how that works. I basically just want to see now if the Sandro has more or less time. And based on that, I will use the tanks or not. So we had like around, yeah, okay. That took a little bit longer than the one before, I think. So we're gonna use the version with the 3 tanks. Also because like the 3 tanks are less vulnerable to Solmiers. So that's why I already kind of decided before the video that I was running the 3 tanks on the Solmier team, on the Sandro team. Alright, and now I think that's gonna be the most interesting test that we're running here. We're going to test Kilgore versus Astral, and even though Astral is my main, like the hero that I use mainly for like everything else, I would not be surprised if my Kilgore actually wins here. Because I'm using 4 tower units, the 4 Magic Awakening units here that we have in the Battle of Gods team as well, and then the 4 units here, Behemoth, Angel, Ogre, and Rock. So both have 4 units. Both have 4 units that they are using. Alright, let's see now. That's the most interesting test for me because I have not run this test before the video, so I don't know the outcome. Alright, I think, if I'm being honest, I think the Kilgore is going to win this. Or it's gonna be a timeout. That can also be a timeout because I think without Astral being 4-star, it has not enough damage to kill the orcs, and Naga also probably does not have enough damage to kill the Behemoth here. We could definitely like arrange the team so that I win with the team that I want to win, but that's a little bit false playing because I cannot adjust in Battle of Gods after I've already fought one time. So yeah. Okay, Earth Elemental is down, and also Naga is almost down. Even though I have Genie here, which should heal like a lot, the Kilgore team actually wins by a mile. That's pretty interesting, pretty cool. Yeah. Now Earth Elemental and the little ones that it spawns are all down. Naga goes down. All three tanks are down now, and that's gonna be it for the Astral team actually. It's gonna be a timeout, but I mean, we saw Astral was not making it. That's gonna be a good thing if my Astral decides to let all the tanks fall, if we can still make it to a timeout and we are the defending team and not the attacking team, then this is gonna be a win in our favor, I think. Or it's just gonna be a draw. It can also just be a draw, but with Astral it's like either you win because Naga and Giant deal enough damage, or it's a timeout. I don't think that my Astra is gonna lose any battles. Alright, so according to those tests, my Kilgore team would be my strongest. And now we're going to do probably the most nerve-wracking thing. We're going to build the roster. I might even split this video in 2 parts because this is already pretty long. So either welcome back or let's do this. Alright, so what are we using? We are using 1 Rampart unit, so we're definitely gonna have to put some in there. We are using some ranged units, we are using some chargers, we are using angels, so we have 1 castle unit. We are using stronghold units for sure, defensive units for sure, necro, we are using casters. We are not using any inferno units, so we will try to keep this completely empty because we don't need it. We are running offensive units, tower units, we are running earth elemental, but also no dungeon units, so we're trying to keep dungeon and inferno completely empty, but everything else is being used. What I usually do as first thing is the main factions that I'm using, as I'm just gonna fill them up with the strongest I have. So that's gonna be stronghold, that's gonna be necro, and that is gonna be tower, because those are the units where we use the most from. And then also gonna use probably at least the tank and the attackers, maybe even charger here, because those are units that we do have a lot, but we don't use a lot, but like we don't have enough space in those rosters. I think the angel though I will not put in the castle roster, because I want the angel with this super high score here of 2300 to be in the offense roster, because the offense roster is affecting all 3 teams and not only 1 team, just as the castle faction roster. Okay, we are using 3, 6, 7, 8 tanks, so my defense units, I will definitely want to have the best tanks that I have there. And then let's see what we do have here in that. We still have 1 necro unit. We do not want to see a necro unit in here. That is because we are running this faction and there are so many defensive units that you're definitely gonna fill this up with enough units. We're also running earth elemental. Okay, so now I have only units from rosters. Oh no, we are using Rampart still, but I want those in here because we're only using 1 Rampart unit. I do want to put this thing into the Rampart roster though. So let's see what defensive units we have of rosters that we're not using. So there's, for example, the Imp, and there is the Black Dragon, and there's also the Minotaur. So if we are getting all our spare defense units into the faction rosters, we have achieved what we wanted. Let's just fill up the roster here for a second and see. Okay, Rampart does actually not have so many units left here, so this would be a full roster if I wanted it to, but we're only using 1 unit here, so keep that in mind. Might want to change that. Also, I forgot to fill up CONFLUX. We are using CONFLUX. Also only 1 unit, but we're definitely using it. Here we already see we have a spare unit, so I want my strongest unit not to be in there. I want my strongest unit definitely to affect roster that is for more than 1 team. And Earth Elemental is only 1 in one team, so CONFLUX is only benefiting one team. We are using quite a bit of casters. We're just gonna fill up the things now that we what is it called? The roster for the units. Okay, we definitely need more ranged units in the roster here. So we can put out the ranged Pegasus unit here, because we're only using one Rampart unit and we do not need like 4 units in the Rampart roster. Okay, we're gonna fill up the Charger roster as well. We have 4 units in here, which should be fine because we're using 2 Chargers only. And that's good for us. And then we have filled up everything basically. Yes, we did. Everything is full. Nobody needs to still have some units in another roster. I will just look through here. Okay. Okay. Castle definitely needs has all units deployed. Rampart as well, because it's has only 4. In Stronghold we just looked at it. In Necro, let's see if we still have open Necro units here. See, we do have still a spare Necro unit. So we see we have a spot in offense and we have a spot in caster. Now we go back, what is benefiting us more? Offense or caster? We do have 1, 2, 3, 4 casters and 3 offense units. So in theory, if we put more units into caster, that will give us more power in total. And let's see if we find a caster from Necro. We do find a caster from Necro, and then we can put our last Necro unit into the Necro roster. Now all Necro units are also in one roster. Inferno is empty as we wanted, so that is perfect. Let's see if we still have tower units not deployed. All tower units are deployed, which is good. And now CONFLUX. All CONFLUX units are also deployed. And dungeon is empty as we wanted. So that's definitely yeah, very fast roster building that I did, because usually you have a little less rosters yet you have to fill in. If you're only making a roster, for example, for your formation with 8 units, you have a lot less rosters to care about usually. And since we're using 18 units in Battle of Gods instead of just 8 in a normal formation, we do have a lot more units, a lot more rosters to take care about. Yeah. Also, since we're now using Necro team, we are using Chargers. I usually not use Chargers. I don't know why, but I don't really like Chargers that much. Especially not in PvP, because then it's just a gamble if your Chargers run up to a tank or not. But the Necro Chargers are something else. Like Vampire is something different. Like that's not really a Charger. That's more like a tank for me. Or a healer. So yeah, that will be our roster for Battle of Gods. Now let's see if our teams are like at least somewhat equal in power. I don't think so though. So this went up to 2,650,000. Here we have 271. That was expected, and this should be 2,060. Yeah. 2,618. So we are in a range of 100,000 difference here, but I think that is fine. We could make the Kilgore roster a little bit weaker and put put another charging unit into the charger roster and see what that does. Because to my knowledge there... Oh no, the Wolf Rider is already here. So the Wolf Rider is not in Stronghold anyways. Okay. Well then, I think this is the best we can do probably for our roster. We could make... No, Rampart and... we could make ranged even worse, but I don't see the point. Because there are only 3 units in here and one is like a gremlin that's not really doing anything. So yeah, I think we're good here. I think that should be it. Also, the reason probably why Necro is on the lowest power here is because 2 of the 3 tanks are only just arrived at orange, those 2. And my Bone Dragon also is only 3-star, whereas the other SSR units that I'm using here are 4-star or 5-star. So it just makes sense that this team has the lowest power. Alright, that's gonna be the teams that I'm using in this tournament. We're gonna see how it's turning out tomorrow and the days after. Probably gonna be making a video on the finals again, like the semi-finals and finals on Thursday. And until then, have a good one, take care, and see ya in the next one. Bye!